This is a quick start guide for ABBYY FlexiCapture version 12 verification stations new user. In this session I plan to cover starting verification station, accessing and opening a project. I have a set of one-time suggested user interface modifications and personal preferences, how you can set it up. I will be working how you can work with tasks, and I will show how we can work with badges. Let's get going. Starting verification station. Please have it installed by your IT or install it yourself as a local application, or access it through some kind of remote desktop or VPN or a Citrix type of account. Verification station runs as a Windows application. If you see data verification station, please do not use it. We use only regular verification station. Data verification station is more limited, and we use it only in a few rare cases. Also, if you see remote verification station, please note that there are some subtle differences between just a regular verification station and remote verification station. This session will be covering regular verification station. Launch the application. If you're running it for the first time, the software will ask you for a few connection and user preferences. Whatever you specify will be remembered for next time, so you need to do it only once. As an example, here I access the previous project, so the software suggests and remembers it for me to use quickly in the future. But your screen will be blank if you're running it for the first time. Follow the browse from server. You will likely be provided by your administrator or by an onboarding email with a few pieces of data. You need to know your application server URL. It is a web address. You may or may not have a tenant name. If you have a tenant name, please specify it here. If you don't have a tenant name, do not specify anything, leave it blank. In the connection settings, depending on your configuration of the FlexiCapture server, please either use the Windows authentication or use your named account as it was provided to you. In most cases, it is a named account, however, it could go either way. I'll use my named account. To make sure that all of the information is correct, make sure to click on Test Connection and see if you receive an acknowledgement. In this case, there is a problem, so I need to double check my connection. Looks like there was a typo on my password. Once you enter everything correctly, you should see a message, connection test successful. So once again, 3 pieces of data: your application server URL, tenant if it exists, and your connection setting details specifically to your account. Click OK to proceed. Next, you may see the next dialog box to select a project. If you have multiple projects on your server, and if your user account is configured to access multiple projects, this prompt will be provided. However, if your user account points to a single project only, this screen will not pop up. It will be simply skipped and you proceed to the next step. So I will select one of the available projects. Next, you may be prompted to select a role. Once again, depending on your project settings by an administrator, or depending if your user account has access to multiple roles, this dialog may or may not be visible. If you have only one role, this dialog will not pop up. If you have multiple roles associated with your account, then you will see this choice. If you see this choice, I suggest to proceed with Senior Verification Operator as the highest tier level verification operator. The other roles are a bit more limited, and sometimes we use those roles for different levels of verification in bigger projects. Once it connects, you will see this screen. Now we proceed to the next stage. Specifically, before we start working with the software, I suggest a set of one-time adjustments in the user interface. First of all, the first step is to turn off automatic task receive mode. We do all of these modifications, especially if you have multiple people in the team, so that everybody could have a consistent, similar working environment. However, these are highly personalized settings. The changes that we're going to make apply only to your account, only on this machine. So the changes you're making in the user interface will be visible only to you. They will not be visible to any other user, which means every user can set up their environment differently according to their personal preferences. I suggest for a group of verifiers to start with consistent set of settings that I'm going to show in this video. And as you progress with the software and find your own preferences, feel free to customize and modify your own user interface to make it most convenient to yourself. So back to the modifications. When you run verification for the first time, it automatically starts with automatic task receive mode enabled. This button on the toolbar. As soon as I open verification station, it immediately wants to suggest the next activity for me to do. So this is a guided process where the software tries to predict your next step and suggest and guide you where you should proceed. So in this case, it immediately picked up and showed to me the first invoice in the queue. I personally do not use automatic task receive mode, so I turn it off in my environment. Turn it off by unpressing this button. But because the software already assigned a task to me, how do I know that? Because the get task is already disabled and I'm looking at the invoice. I'm going to temporarily one time click on reject task. Do you really want to reject the current task? Yes. I'll explain what that means in a moment. We're still making one-time user interface modifications. Next, what I suggest to do is, depending on your screen size, optimize your working environment. If you're working with a small screen, such as a 13-inch laptop, or if you're working with a touchpad instead of a real physical mouse, your activities will be not as efficient as they could be in a software. So I suggest large screen, perhaps even a dual monitor, as well as a designated mouse, convenient keyboard, and just make yourself feel comfortable while working in the software. Part of the screen optimization means use every part of your screen to your benefit. For example, by default, the software comes with a lot of buttons and actions available. In FlexiCapture in general, there are these buttons that are backed up by keyboard shortcuts. So for example, that button means Qs, but it also means Control Q on your keyboard. This is a batches list, but it's also Control B. So the first takeaway is perhaps you may want to optimize your screen area further by removing some of these toolbars. I generally go to View and hide all of the toolbars other than queues and tasks. Let me show that to you. Like that. So that already removed the line from the toolbar and it gave me an extra screen surface area to work on. Keyboard shortcuts are still available in this menu. So for example, as you'll see that every menu item has a keyboard shortcut associated with it. But this software is also very customizable. You can go to Tools, Options, Keyboard Shortcuts, and define or redefine your own keyboard shortcuts. For example, let's say you would like to have a split command that splits the document. Currently, it does not have a shortcut, but if this is something that you're using it frequently, you're welcome to assign a shortcut. So I'm going to do Control Alt S in this case. So I press it on my keyboard, it generates a shortcut, and now I can assign that shortcut to a particular action. You don't have to do it as the first run. Just keep in mind that keyboard shortcuts are already available for majority of common actions, and you're welcome to redefine as well as create your own for the functions that you frequently use. Next, let's review how we work with queues. So under View, Queues, or Control Q, you're going to see a list of available queues in your project. Now this list changes from project to project. I am currently showing only exceptions and verification because these are the two default queues available with a basic project. But here you have white spaces or plenty of space to create and add your own queues. That is done by system administrators, by FlexiCapture administrators. Working with queues or working with tasks means you can select a queue that you want to work on and click on Get Task. I have a single task in verification queue, so I'm going to do that. Select verification, click Get Task. You could also double click on verification, or you could right click, Get Task, or you could even explore the queue to see what's inside. But I'm going to use the toolbar and explain the toolbar next. So working with tasks. Once I click on Get Task, that task is being assigned to me. We've seen this screen before because when I opened it for the first time, software wanted to assign the task to me thanks to the automatic task receive mode. But now we intentionally request a task. What does that mean? A task is a unit of work. Right now, when I requested this task, it now belongs to me so that no other users can touch or interfere with it. I currently own this batch and this invoice where I can review, modify, make corrections, and so on. Once I'm done with that review, I will be clicking Close Task. If you look at the icon, it has a green checkbox and an arrow pointing forward, suggesting that all done, all good, green light, proceed. If I do it right now, I'm going to receive a warning message. The task has the following document errors, rule errors, as indicated by this red flag. Unverified symbols, as indicated by this certainty recognition. This is not a 100% recognized document, it's 97% recognized document. So when you try to send a task forward, you will receive this reminder. There are still some items to review. Do you want to go to the first error item? Yes or no? I'll cancel this action. This window on the side, for majority of the projects, it is not used. So I suggest as part of your screen area optimization, exit out and simply remove that window. You can bring it from the menu later if you need to, but we're not going to use for 99% of the projects. Columns. So this is what's called a task view, where you're able to see your document, how many pages inside. You can optimize your columns. So let's say you would like to see how many uncertain characters there are, or you like to see a particular task ID, and a task ID you would like to have closer to the document. You can change the view of the columns as well as move the columns around by simple drag and drop. And the software will memorize these actions. And this user interface will be presented to you next time you open the application. As you go into the document itself, you can perform further user interface optimization steps one time. Here are my common preferences for this screen, which is the document view screen. This is the document view because I can see my batch content or task content, as well as the image and the text from the document itself. I personally like to have image on the left, data on the right. Right now it is reversed by default. To me, reading left to right makes sense. So I will right click on this gray bar and put the image window on the left, while the data is going to reside on the right side of my screen. If you have a dual monitor, you're welcome to put the image as undocked. That is, image will be on one screen as a separate window, and the data will be on the second screen as a separate window. But for the point of this demonstration, I'll continue with a single screen. Next, you can change your preferred size of the image, how it's best convenient. It depends on your screen size. I usually try fit to width so that for this particular screen, I can see enough of the image, enough of the details, while still seeing enough of the data. A shortcut to that action is Control and scroll on your mouse. So if I hold Control and scroll up and down, I can quickly zoom in and zoom out as I need to. Same applies to the data form. If I hold Control, I can zoom in and zoom out how I need to. So arrange your sizes, your screens accordingly. If you like to see document in icons, you're welcome to switch to View, Thumbnails, and in that case, the screen changes the layout where now you can see 3 panels where you can see the small pages of the document itself, then the image area, the data area, and the errors area right here. Next optimization that I like to do is change the message for active errors. If a field has a yellow or red box, here's the yellow warning, here's the red error, you see this pop-up right here. In my opinion, this pop-up obscures the next 2-3 lines, so it's in my way, it's covering some data. I like to change the style of it. Right-click, Show Error Messages of Active Fields. I like it to be at the top of Errors window, so that error is still visible right here in this yellow box, but now it doesn't obscure my text. So as I navigate from warning to error, the message that belongs to this field is presented right here. Next optimization that I like to do one time is change the default color scheme. Depending on the brightness and the contrast of your monitor, some colors may not be boldly visible. So for example, these light blue shades indicate captured data. I like to change this light blue to something a little darker so I could see it better. So when I look at the document, this is hard to see, how the genome text was blue highlighted as a captured field right here. So allow me to change that color scheme. Tools, Options, Colors. You have variety of colors to choose from, but specifically I'm looking for highlight unfocused field region. This is the light blue right here. I will change it to a more bright blue. So perhaps this is my color choice right here, right now. Somebody else may choose green or pink or purple. I believe as long as it's working for your screen, for your eyes, and doesn't obscure the data, pick your own colors. But I'll go with this. Then as you navigate from field to field in the data form, here you get the yellow highlight. The yellow becomes the focus area. You're welcome to change that yellow as well if you prefer it to be something else. Maybe something more pink to catch your attention better. So please take your time and explore the color schemes and adjust your colors accordingly. In general, this is typically my working environment where I have small view of the batch, majority of the screen shows the image details, usually set to fit to width, like this, and perhaps a little more narrow data form on the right side. Working with tasks. So when you pick up a task and you review everything you need to review on the document itself, when everything is clear, all of the red flags have been resolved, all of the yellow warnings have been reviewed, all of the characters have been checked, then you can click Close Task. Close Task says, I am done reviewing, send it to the next step. You have a few other buttons here available for our use. This button is Mark for sending to exceptions. If you want to put this document aside, or if you'd like to send it or escalate it to a different user, you're welcome to click that, where you can provide a comment why you're sending it to somebody else. Or you can review recent comments. The next button is Postpone Tasks. I suggest not to use it. Postpone tasks put the task into a temporary holding queue so you can return to it later. The danger of using the postpone task is that if you put it into postpone and then don't come back to it, that task will be assigned to you until you continue working with it. Instead of that, I suggest, if you need to put a document aside, to use this reject task. Now, reject sounds too harsh. It doesn't mean you're throwing away a task. I think a more proper term for this would be cancel the task or put back the task where we picked it up. So look at the arrow, how it's pointing backwards. Here you receive the task. Arrow pointing forward means you're done with it, send it to the next step. Arrow pointing back means reject the task. So if I say reject task, it says, do you really want to reject the current task? I say yes. And the task goes back to verification so that I or any other user could continue working on that task. And the last detail I wanted to show here is working with batches. In some cases, it is more beneficial to pick up and work with an individual batch so you can proceed to view batches. And in that case, you're going to see a list of folders or batches available, but same actions apply. If you like to work with any particular batch, select it, get task, and that task will be assigned to you. Work with the task, either complete the task or reject the task by putting it back. Abby FlexiCapture is highly customizable. So even today I showed you many personal settings and preferences you can apply to your own working environment. Make it convenient and efficient for yourself so that documents and the processes work better and quicker for you. In some rare cases, we may modify the user interface by adding or removing additional custom buttons. In this case, those are not visible. If you have any questions, please reach out back to me. I'll be happy to provide further details. Thanks for your attention.